Now, the climate is changing. What are you seeing? How might that affect sources for these little nuggets of joy?
Yeah, my contacts just this week were telling me that it's the worst season for white truffles in Europe that they have ever seen, and that's coming on the heels of one of the worst seasons for white truffles the year before. So the Mediterranean climate is getting drier, and that's not good for truffles. They need a lot of rain during the summer. So white truffles may be moving north a little bit out of the Mediterranean and into northern areas of Europe.
Rowan Jacobson is a journalist, and the new book is called Truffle Hound: On the Trail of the World's Most Seductive Scent, with dreamers, schemers, and some extraordinary dogs. Mr. Jacobson, thank you.
Thanks, David.
Follow along for Econ Extra Credit. Sign up free at marketplace.org/newsletters. Also, you could stream more of our conversation there from our homepage, where we learn that the truffle oil you're probably buying often has no real truffle in it at all. But there is a truffly chemical. I'm David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Law Firm.
I'm Wayne Hogan. The Move Over Law protects police, fire, EMS, utility, and sanitation personnel by requiring drivers to move over and slow down for their vehicles.
Learn more at waynehogan.law.
Baptist Health is a proud sponsor of First Coast Connect with Melissa Ross.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
What's next in the long-running push for police reform in Jacksonville? I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, protests are planned next week outside Jacksonville City Council after the collapse of that body's Safer Together committee, looking at ways to improve trust between police and residents in the city. We'll speak with council members Joyce Morgan and Michael Boylan. That's coming up. Then later,
this week, we debuted our first new online news product, which is a daily Monday to Friday newsletter, doing it all under the banner of Jacksonville Today, and we are really excited about it.
How you can be part of our new effort at WJCT Public Media, Jacksonville Today, and our free daily newsletter. It's all ahead. After the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The full House is set to vote today on a contempt referral against former Trump strategist Steve Bannon. He's refused to cooperate with the House Select Committee investigating the attack against the U.S. Capitol. If passed by the House, the contempt matter then goes to federal prosecutors who could take criminal action against Bannon. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland heads to Capitol Hill today for his first oversight hearing as leader of the Justice Department. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports lawmakers have plenty of questions.
Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee want to ask the Attorney General what he's doing to protect voting rights and crack down on hate crimes. They also want an update on cases against the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, and they want to know whether former President Donald Trump and his inner circle are part of that probe. Merrick Garland is likely to duck that question, citing DOJ policy that bars him from talking about ongoing investigations. Republicans say they have questions about migrants along the southwest border and his recent guidance to the FBI about violence against teachers and other officials in schools. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
250,000 homes are without electricity in France as powerful stormy winds sweep across the north of the country. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports from Paris that trains traveling from Normandy to the French capital have been halted.
The windstorms are also creating havoc in the Netherlands and Belgium. Local media reported that 4 people were injured in a small Dutch town when strong gusts of wind ripped tiles from rooftops and uprooted trees. The storm hit Brittany's coast Wednesday afternoon and blew through the night. Storm warnings remained in force Thursday all the way to the eastern French border with Germany and Luxembourg.
NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reporting. Meanwhile, 2 powerful storms are headed for the Pacific Northwest. The National Weather Service says this atmospheric river will bring as much as 5 inches of rain to some drought-stricken areas. Russia is reporting another day of record infections and fatalities due to the coronavirus. NPR's Charles Maynes reports from Moscow the continued spike in numbers is forcing the reintroduction of COVID-19 restrictions, including a lockdown starting next Thursday.
Russia's coronavirus task force recorded more than 36,000 new infections and 1,036 deaths on Thursday, the latest in a grim set of numbers that's forced President Vladimir Putin to approve a nationwide non-working week starting October 30th. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin now says that will be paired with a partial lockdown of the city starting next Thursday, as all restaurants, cafes, gyms, and schools are closed to stem the spread of the virus. Meanwhile, there are reports of shortages of medical personnel and near-full COVID wards in several regions of the country. The Kremlin blames Russians' reluctance to vaccinate for fueling a pandemic authorities once boasted was largely under control. Charles Maynes, NPR News, Moscow.
This is NPR.
And this is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. It's 9:04 now. It's been just over 2 weeks since the city of Jacksonville suspended pickup of recyclables from the curb. So if you're making the effort to haul your cardboard boxes and plastic bottles to one of the 15 drop-off sites, the manager of Jacksonville's recycling center says please don't bring them in plastic trash bags. Jason Graves says the bags jam up the equipment, resulting in whole loads of recycling having to be thrown out. Same thing goes for food scraps and spray cans.
Our number one problem are jams in our screens from the wrong stuff being in there. People put little propane tanks or aerosol cans in the stream, and those will explode inside the baler if we miss getting it out by hand.
The city has suspended curbside recycling indefinitely. So for now, city contractors are taking recycling from the 15 drop-off bins to Jacksonville's processing center every day. From there, what's usable is separated, sorted, and wrapped into bales for paper mills and brokers to purchase. A cruise ship made a brief stop in Key West yesterday, but that doesn't mean cruises have returned to the island. According to the city of Key West, Royal Caribbean's Serenade of the Seas stopped at the island to transfer an 81-year-old man in critical condition with septic shock. Voters last year approved setting limits that would cut way back on the cruise ship industry, but those limits were overturned by the legislature. And right now it's 67 degrees, calm here in Jacksonville. Near 84 today.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Norton LifeLock, reminding consumers that millions of Americans have been affected by identity theft. Learn more at lifelock.com/NPR, and the listeners who support this NPR station.
Council members have their say about the collapse of Safer Together. Good morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening. And just ahead this hour, what's next for police reform here in the 904 as we speak with 2 members of the City Council, Joyce Morgan and Michael Boylan. Get on the line now and join the conversation. It's 549-2937. Then later, WJCT Public Media launches Jacksonville Today, a free daily newsletter you can have sent right to your inbox, bringing you up to date on all the doings of this city. More about that in a little bit. But first this hour, a rally is planned outside next week's City Council meeting. This after a criminal justice reform effort called Safer Together fell apart this week. Council member Michael Boylan resigned as co-chair of Safer Together after saying that he did not believe law enforcement and activists could ever get on to the same page about a long-running discussion involving police reform. Boylan saying community activists were unwilling to back down from their demands for a civilian review board to review use of force incidents by police. In a few moments, we will hear from Councilman Michael Boylan. But first, a conversation with the chair of the now defunct Safer Together initiative, because Council President Sam Newby has dissolved the committee. Councilmember Joyce Morgan of Arlington is on the line. Councilwoman Morgan, good morning, and thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Melissa. Thank you for having me, and thank you for understanding earlier in the week that I simply didn't have enough information to really speak about it.
That's perfectly fine, and we appreciate both you and Councilmember Boylan being on the show this morning. It's 549-2937. Emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets to @MelissaInJax. Joyce Morgan, what's your reaction to Safer Together no longer going forward?
I am absolutely disappointed, Melissa. I'm not shocked, though, because I did talk to President Newby earlier in the week, and he said he was leaning toward ending the Safer Together workshops. However, I did ask him to reconsider, but he has made his decision.
And so what now for efforts at police reform, criminal justice reform? Safer Together had actually issued a number of recommendations after studying this issue, calling for things like a civilian review board of controversial police-involved shootings, more mental health professionals within JSO, beefing up crisis communications and implicit bias training. These are all recommendations this effort had put forth. What happens to those now?
I think that remains to be seen, and I think that remains in the hands, really, of the community and of citizens who are passionate about this. We had a lot of citizens who were passionate. We had people come on both sides of the aisle. But in the end, I just believe that we forgot something that was major. We forgot that it was always going to be contentious. We forgot that people were going to have tough conversations. We were going to have to grow thick skin to get through this. And it's just a shame that we have to stop the conversation because, when you stop talking, there is no way to get to any resolution. And so that's what concerns me, and that's why I'm very, very disappointed.
There will be a rally next week outside the City Hall building. A coalition of groups plans to keep up the pressure around police reform. And of course, we're seeing that happen across the country. And so as someone who's led on this effort, what will you personally do to keep this issue alive, since certainly you've been hearing from your constituents about it?
Yes, and you have to remember that I'm hearing from both sides of the issue. Everybody does not agree, and that's part of the total issue and the total aim of Safer Together. We understand that everybody is not on the same page. And I think that when you look back on something, when you play Monday morning quarterback, you always see some things that maybe we could have done better. Does that mean you stop the whole process? Absolutely not. So I'll still be in the fight. I think citizens have to lead this. We're at a crossroads in Jacksonville, and we don't need to stop talking to each other. We've got to stop talking at each other, though. That is a problem, Melissa, talking at each other.
Now, you said you've heard from both sides of this issue. In a few moments, we'll hear from Vice Chair of Safer Together, Councilman Michael Boylan. He resigned from the committee Monday. He said community activists were unwilling to back down from their demands for a civilian review board to look at use of force incidents by police. Your colleague, Member Boylan, disagrees with that idea. Where do you stand on that?
You're talking about the police review
right.
board?
I mean, that's
the
most controversial recommendation that Safer Together has floated.
Yes, absolutely. It was the most controversial. And Mr. Boylan had actually come up with something else, with a policy. review. And so I thought we were moving forward with all of those recommendations. So again, I was disappointed that he felt that we couldn't get there. I feel that you can get there, but I feel that you have to continue the conversation so that you do have an opportunity to get there. And when we look at things, Melissa, really being totally honest, being very transparent in this, when we look at people who have disagreements, every other Tuesday night, we have disagreements with council members on different issues. We stand on different sides, and you're going to even see that this Tuesday night where council members are not going to agree. So this is a way of life. We have to remember to remain respectful, and for me, I think that was also what Mr. Boylan put in his letter of resignation.
Saying that he didn't appreciate some of the language used in this workshop. We're going to turn now to your colleague, and I want to thank you, Joyce Morgan, representing Arlington on the Jacksonville City Council. Thanks for being with us.
And thank you, Melissa.
Let's now welcome Councilmember Michael Boylan, representing Mandarin. Michael Boylan, good morning.
Good morning, Melissa.
Good to have you. And we'll go to calls in a few moments at 549-2937. Michael Boylan, why resign from the committee when the conversation got heated? Why not keep the conversation going?
Well, first of all, I have to appreciate the fact that this conversation has been going on for nearly a year. We had 14 hours of very difficult conversations, which I was actively participating in. Subsequent to the report, another 4 hours. So it's not that I'm walking away from this after a very short stint. I agreed to serve on this committee at the outset when Council President Hazuri requested I do so. And I continued to agree to serve on this because I thought we were making progress as we move forward under the Council President Newby's administration. So the decision to do so was as difficult of any as I could possibly make, recognizing full well I would be bringing a lot of attention to the issue, which is a good thing, but also a lot of attention to myself as well, and that was not my intent.
Let me ask you about criticism that you faced in the Florida Times-Union, saying that you were spotted in the most recent workshop getting an earful from JSO's director, Mike Bruno, after one activist characterized deadly police shootings as murders. Is that behind your sudden change of heart? Are you getting pressure from the police union to walk away from this effort?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I wanted to speak to my conversation with Sheriff Williams because I understand yesterday's conversation, it was alleged that I was getting pressure from the sheriff's office to step away from this project, and that couldn't be further from the truth. We had a conversation, and in that conversation with Sheriff Williams, as I did in my initial memorandum with my recommendation, I let him know how disappointed I was about his lack of personal participation in our conversation. From there, he helped me understand that he had been intimately familiar with all the conversations, the report, and everything that's contained within the report. Beyond that, we talked about, and as testimony to the fact that we wanted to see this continue, I wanted to see continue. I had access to an interim report that the International Association of Chiefs of Police had been commissioned by JSO to do. And part of our conversation was that when the final report would come out, he would personally commit to come to our meeting in the future days to share that report. And within that report are many of the kind of things that we've been talking about as part of the transformation.
I guess many constituents are wondering, though, why you would just quit. What's your reaction to your colleague Joyce Morgan's remarks of a few minutes ago saying that the conversations are difficult, that people aren't on the same page, but that if the sides quit talking, there's no hope of real reform or improvement in the situation? Why not keep it going?
Well, Melissa, I believe you know my history in working with race relations in our community. I've been actively involved with work with the Human Rights Commission ever since I came to Jacksonville. So it facilitated a number of community study circles. Even to the most recently in the last budget process was able to see the appropriation of additional funds to the Human Rights Commission to deal with issues of conversation. The fact of the matter is we'd hit a stone wall. And I think I was probably in the right place in recommending a policy review board because neither side was happy with that decision. But I saw it as a good compromise and a good starting point. But the volatility of the last two discussions only further drove a wedge between what could have been done and where we are right now. So it wasn't an easy decision, to be sure. And, I stepped away because I just felt it was necessary to bring greater attention to the fact, as Councilmember Morgan had just said, we were speaking at each other and not to each other. And we'd reached the point that that's where we were yet again.
Let's go to some calls now. 549-2937. Ben Frazier on the line. He called in yesterday, one of the activists behind this effort from the Northside Coalition of Jacksonville. Ben Frazier, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I think that the only stone wall that we ran into that was significant was the stone wall erected by Mr. Boylan. The bottom line here is that we need the genius of people who are willing to take a deep dive, to take a closer look at the issue of implicit and explicit bias in law enforcement. We are now proposing that all shareholders, including Mr. Boylan, participate in a new series of charrette meetings to continue our effort. My question is, will Mr. Boylan and Morgan support our proposal that we've sent to all city council folks about a series of charrette meetings? This addendum. John Kennedy wrote a book called Profiles in Courage. What we're seeing happening right here is not an example of courageous leadership. My question, will you participate in a new series of charrette meetings? You've got the proposal on your desk. Ms. Morgan has seen it as well. Can we move this forward with continuing a conversation about the relationship between the community and JSO?
Michael Boylan.
Well, with all due respect to Mr. Frazier, I think for the past 9 months we have been doing exactly that. Those were charrettes. Those were communications between JSO and the community. Director Bruno walked away from every one of those meetings saying he learned something about the process. So we were there. And Councilmember Morgan and myself were serving as intermediaries in that conversation. Do I want to see this continue in some form or fashion? Absolutely. Because I think we still have a long ways to go in terms of garnering confidence on both sides of this issue. So I don't know, and I'll have to take a look at what Mr. Frazier is proposing, but that's exactly what we are doing.
Lots of calls. Jay in Mandarin. Hello, Jay.
Good morning. How are you?
Okay, go ahead.
I live in Mandarin, and from what I'm hearing, what I don't understand is just because JSO had a conversation with the community for 9 months to a year, and basically what I'm hearing is that they got uncomfortable and they don't like the fact of blank. They don't have that privilege to say they don't want and what they don't like and to quit. And to be uncomfortable after 9 months to a year, the problems that people have in the community have been going on for way longer than 9 months to a year. If the community's uncomfortable about something that's been going on for over a decade, you don't need to walk up to anyone. You don't need to tell anyone that somebody doesn't like anything and we're not going to do this anymore because we did it for 9 months or a year or 2 years and it didn't work out. There's been a problem for longer than 9 months to a year, and you need to sit down and be uncomfortable for about 5 years. Be uncomfortable. Stay in the middle of the conversation. Be uncomfortable. Be standing there and take responsibility for what has gone wrong and change. This is a problem because there is no desire to change, and there is no feeling that they can be pushed, nor will they be pushed. So everything else that's said is basically rhetoric. And as somebody who lives in Mandarin, I don't really want to hear it. I could care less about all that. You need to go do your job. If they're uncomfortable, let them be uncomfortable. They need to be uncomfortable because they need to change. No one changes unless they are moved out of their comfort zone. They're comfortable doing what they're doing. And if no one says anything about what they're doing or pushes them to change, they're never going to. Period, point blank. Thank you very much.
All right, Councilmember Boylan, what about that? That walking away from the committee takes the heat off JSO to change, which is what police departments across America are being asked to do, frankly.
Well, obviously the issue remains. There is still a real concern about the relationship between the community and the JSO in many respects. So I understand that. I don't think they're walking away from this conversation. It was merely I who walked away from it because I wanted to bring greater attention to the fact that we were not making progress. Or let me rephrase that we stopped making progress. Because as I said, I agreed to continue a second term on this committee because we were making progress to that.
Well, let me just jump in though and say the account in the Times-Union from columnist Nate Monroe, who watched the whole most recent meeting, he described it as professional, calm, even dry, with only one provocative comment nearly 2 hours into the meeting, which upset JSO. How is that a characterization of no progress? Isn't that more just a difficult conversation, not unlike some of the ones that you have every week at City Council?
I have not seen Mr. Monroe's piece, so I can't speak to that, and that's his opinion. And I certainly respect the fact that he could have that. It wasn't the first conversation that we've had. The last conversation prior to that was every bit as, in my words, volatile. I'm a big proponent of civil discourse. We were not having that at the last two meetings. And as Councilmember Morgan said, and I agree, people were speaking at each other and not to each other. So I don't care. I mean, you can characterize it however you want in that respect, but I knew where we were headed. And, you know, the whole intent of this thing really was two things from my perspective. Number one was to have a forum where we could have the kind of difficult conversations we have. And then number two, to get to a point that we created a vehicle that allowed this to become a sustainable process. Clearly that wasn't going to happen. So I just felt the need to step away from it.
A few more calls. Carnell on the north side. Carnell, good morning.
Good morning. I want to say this. As far as dealing with the Safer Together situation, one of the things I want to personally highlight is that I believe there's the fox guarding the hen house. I believe that the only reason why Mr. Boylan stepped away is because a certain number of council members received city funding from the sheriff's office. That's number one. And my second personal piece is that you're grown. I can't see how an adult that has gray hair in his head can walk away from a conversation where people want change. Y'all are watching each other's back. Y'all will sit there and entertain conversation and all that talk, but you will not provide real opportunity for sustainable change. And that's the most frustrating part about this, is that it's the fox guarding the hen house.
Carnell, thank you. Councilmember Boylan, here's a tweet from a listener. Will Councilman Boylan introduce legislation for a policy review board? And does he not think that him withdrawing wouldn't kill it? Maybe is that a possibility to keep this effort going via legislation?
Quite honestly, Melissa, I have not given that any thought. It's certainly something I will consider. I think the conversation needs to continue. I'm not certain yet. Let me think about that. As you probably know, I'm a process person, and I haven't come to that realization. But I did want to comment with respect to Mr. Oliver's comments. When I moved to Jacksonville, I didn't have gray hair 20 plus years ago now. But I did recognize the issue of challenges in our community as I spoke to race, and I have been committed to this conversation. My willingness to be on this committee, a difficult committee going into it, I knew that full well, was because I do believe we have an opportunity and a responsibility to improve, to get everyone safer together as the intent of the committee.
There are lots of tweets and emails coming into the show. Let me just get one more on the air, and then we'll go back to your calls as we continue the conversation with Michael Boylan about police reform. Here is a tweet from Jimmy. I wonder if Mr. Boylan understands that the police union is declaring victory over the activists due to his actions that ended the committee. His comments ring hollow. Will he correct the record, or does he agree with FOP? What about that, the perception that you have handed a victory to the police union in this difficult conversation?
Well, that's the first I've heard of it. I've had no communications with the FOP since my decision, so I don't know what they are, what they're espousing in their comments. So I really can't speak to that. My decision was a singular decision based upon where I stood in this process and my hopes of making real progress in this journey.
I'm going to put this in the words of some of the listeners and people who followed this process for a while. Isn't real progress sitting in a room and having uncomfortable conversations, particularly as a white person? I mean, your kids are grown. Mine are almost grown. We both have children. Our kids are white. We don't have to ever worry about our kids getting killed if they're, say, pulled over for speeding or for a moving violation. Things like that are what occupy the fears of citizens of color in this community. And so what about that? That as a white office holder who is more privileged, that it's incumbent upon you, on me, on all of us in the more privileged position to take a back seat, to listen to those of color about their lived experiences and have the difficult conversations that can eventually bring about positive change while still respecting the fact that police do have a dangerous job and that they are vital to this community. What about that argument?
Well, first and foremost, the issue of white privilege, I am intimately aware and learned a long time ago about the privilege I have because of my color, and an appreciation that not everyone shares that. That's something that was embedded into me early on in the study circle process, so I understand and appreciate that. I've had intimate conversations multiple times over the course of years of incidents where people of color have been put in the situation as you described. They are that, and I think we have a process in place. I know some people have some arguments with it, but part of our conversation during the course of these workshops was to talk about how the police were policing the police in this process and the involvement of that community. And as I said in my letter, the indicting the entire JSO based upon a handful of folks who are, bad eggs, if you will, in this process is I don't think something that we can't keep using as an excuse to say that we've got to stop these conversations. We need to continue these conversations. I don't have an argument with that.
And we have also reached out to Council President Sam Newby. You have agreed to step onto the hot seat, so to speak, and take questions from the public, which we appreciate. Sam Newby, really, he's ultimately the one who made the decision to end this effort, and we do hope to talk to him at some point, too. Let's take a few more calls. For Councilmember Boylan, earlier we spoke with Councilmember Joyce Morgan. May on the South Side. May, you're on the air.
With all due respect, Councilman, Tommy Hazouri is rolling in his grave right now. If you're not going to do your job, which is listen to people talking at you emphatically, listen to try to understand a different position, why don't you let somebody else do your job and be the city councilman representing Mandarin? And I'll take my comments off the air. Thank you.
Okay. Michael Boylan, we're almost out of time. Your final thoughts.
Well, my final thoughts with respect to that, I think I have proven historically in my reputation that I am willing to listen. Even yesterday's comments by one of your folks mentioned the fact that I was an avid listener to what was being said by them. So there is an appreciation there. The mere fact that I was willing to be on this program today gives you, hopefully, and others an appreciation of the fact that I was sincere in my efforts, to see us make real progress in this process. And the journey will continue.
Thank you for your time, Michael Boylan of Mandarin. And we also spoke earlier with Joyce Morgan of Arlington. We hope to have Council President Newby on at some point soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And much more still ahead. Later, a preview of the Jacksons walking tour of San Marco, and we'll tell you how you can join that crowd. But up next.
But this week, we debuted our first new online news product, which is a daily Monday to Friday newsletter, doing it all under the banner of Jacksonville Today, and we are really excited about it.
WJCT Public Media launches Jacksonville Today. We'll tell you how you can get it delivered for free straight to your inbox every single workday. That's coming up next. Well, WJCT Public Media is very excited to announce we've received a $500,000 grant from the Arthur Vining Davis Foundation. That, along with support from ViStar Credit Union, Florida Blue, the Community Foundation of Northeast Florida, and individual donors, is helping us launch Jacksonville Today. Now, Jax Today is a free newsletter you can receive each day in your inbox to keep you informed and help you engage here in the 904. For more about Jacksonville Today, I spoke with WJCT CEO David McGowan. Hey, David, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Melissa.
It's great to talk about some good news for WJCT Public Media and also the civic life of Northeast Florida. We've got a great story to tell right now.
It's great to be here and to talk about that, Melissa. And, we were able and fortunate to be able to announce some great news this week. We announced some additional major funding from the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations for what we call our local journalism initiative, which is really across both radio and our work online. But this week, we debuted our first new online news product, which is a daily Monday to Friday newsletter, doing it all under the banner of Jacksonville Today, and we are really excited about it.
This is excellent because this is a way to strengthen local news. Studies show all over the country that when people don't know what their local government is doing, it leads to corruption, it leads to sometimes poor financial decisions, it leads to an erosion of cultural and civic life in cities. And we want to stand against that. That's part of what we're doing here.
That's right. We've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really working to understand the effects of a decline in local news and information. We know that that's happening, and we want to do our job to counteract that. And so that's why we have invested heavily in our local news capabilities. Again, first we did that on the radio side, and of course you know that as well as anyone or better than anyone. We've increased our local newscast. We've gone to becoming an all-news talk format station called WJCT News 89.9. That's the station that you're listening to right now. But we know that we needed to do more of this work in the places where more and more people in Jacksonville are getting their news, and that's online. And we want to do that work in a way that takes advantage of the special capabilities of online journalism. And that means we're working on data visualization. Our newsletter today has our first photo essay included in it from a local photographer. We're really working hard to bring people what they need in formats that they can use. And this Jacksonville Today newsletter is something that we've been working on for months. We've prototyped it many times with a test group of over 400 people. I think we're really confident that people will find it engaging. And so I really would like to urge everyone listening to your show right now, just go to jaxtoday.org. It takes about 1 minute to sign up. It's completely free. And I think people will find it really engaging.
I signed up the first day. We don't ask you to do anything that we're not doing ourselves. jaxtoday.org, sign up for the newsletter. And there's more to come because this is what you call a vertical, one of many publications and initiatives that we either directly publish ourselves or that we affiliate with other partners to get
That's right. We
information
started this work online really with what you mentioned, what we call verticals, right? Things devoted to specific subjects. We work with our partners at Modern Cities to create the Jackson magazine. That's all part of Jacksonville Today. We created Adapt, which is an online multimedia magazine devoted to coverage of climate change and sea level rise. And all of those efforts now are really seeing their full culmination in this Jacksonville Today effort. The newsletter, as you said, Melissa, is really kind of the leading edge. It's the first new product under that brand, but we think it will really satisfy a need. It's a way to just get up to speed on all the news of the day. And again, from multiple sources, right? This is not something that is only a WJCT news product. There are lots of sources contributing to it, lots of contributors who are giving their perspective to it. But fundamentally, it's a place to get caught up on the news of the day because we know that the first step to being engaged is being informed. And that's really what our job is with this newsletter. So please, jaxtoday.org, that's the place to go. 1 minute and you're there. And you get it every morning in your inbox at 6 a.m. I've been reading it for a while now, of course. And you know what? It's fantastic. That's where I'm getting my news every morning.
That's right. This is such an easy way to get up to speed on local news. And as David said, this is also a way for you to get more engaged in the community. You know, I can't tell you how often I hear from folks who are relatively new to town, because we do have a lot of new people who've moved to Jacksonville, particularly in the pandemic. And over they say, you know, I listen to your station so that I can learn about this community. And it's been amazing because I didn't know anybody. I don't know who any of the major players are. And I listen to you guys and I learn about the community. Well, if you're one of those people, this is another great way to plug in and get engaged on the issues, the topics, the players, what's going on and driving discussion in Jacksonville.
And you know, Melissa, one of the very specific features of this Jax Today newsletter is what's going on in City Hall and how you can participate, right? How you can actually go to the meeting or stream the meeting. And it's not only at City Hall. We have civic happenings all over our community every day. And so one of the things that we want to do is let people know about them, let people know how they can participate in them. And indeed, the other thing that we want to encourage is, you know, people to send us their own views. We've been able to incorporate in our first editions some feedback that we've received on specific issues that we've been talking about. So that's also part of the engagement game. So yes, please, there's lots to see and enjoy. Again, you can go on our website. You can look at an edition first if you're hesitant about signing up. But honestly, I don't know why you would be. It's free and fantastic. jaxtoday.org.
Do it now, jaxtoday.org. Just enter your email and plug in to this daily free newsletter that will bring you just a rich array of information and content. Our CEO, David McGowan, thanks so much.
Thank you, Melissa.
Well, in honor of National Community Planning Month, we want you to join our partners at the Jackson Mag this Saturday for a past, present, and future tour of one of Jacksonville's most popular historic neighborhoods, San Marco. Join the Jacksons Ennis Davis, Bill Delaney, and Mike Field for a 2-hour walking tour of this beautiful neighborhood. San Marco was formerly the independent town of South Jacksonville. From its first period of major growth in the 1920s to today, the neighborhood features a wide diversity of architectural styles, everything from Renaissance Revival to Craftsman, Art Deco, and more. Today, of course, it's known for the vibrant San Marco Square and for being home to many of the city's best restaurants and bars. The Jacksons' Mike Field is on the line with a preview of all the fun. Hey, Mike.
How you doing, Melissa?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us. So this sounds like a lot of fun. Hopefully a beautiful fall day for people to learn a little bit more about San Marco. Tell us what is on tap.
Yeah, it should be a Chamber of Commerce day. We're looking forward to it. So, at the Jackson, we really kind of focused on, where we've been as a community, where we are, and start a conversation about where we're going. And so we started these neighborhood tours to kind of get people familiar with areas that they may not know, or areas they've lived in their whole lives, but didn't really understand the what, where, and why of how things are and where things are headed. So we've done quite a few of these tours. Our next one is in San Marco. I'm particularly excited about that because one of my partners, Bill, is a resident of San Marco. My wife and I just moved to Miramar a couple of years ago. The first time in my life I've been on this side of the river. So it's pretty exciting to kind of get people to be aware of what it is. One of the things I find most interesting is that when I go in the office, people will say, "Oh, we had dinner the other day at Taverna, which is in San Marco Square," and they talk about it as being downtown. Well, not only is it San Marco not downtown, it used to be its own city at a certain point in time.
That's right.
There are people alive today, not many, but that still remember, when it was its own city. So, so it's interesting. These tours kind of take on a life of their own because it gets people to understand that these areas are unique. They're unique Jacksonville neighborhoods, and that's why we like doing them.
Sure. We are a city of neighborhoods. We are a big, far-flung place, and people are really passionate about the neighborhoods they choose to call home. And you're going to start in Bayless Park, right in the heart of San Marco Square, with the beautiful gazebo and the cool big lions. And I've read a little bit about the history of how San Marco was developed, Mike. Wasn't there a real effort to give it a sort of European, Italianate vibe when they started planning the community and building it?
Yeah, that's correct. It was kind of inspired by a kind of an Italian Mediterranean type of motif. And on the tour, we'll learn about, we'll walk past some of the water features that people just think were always there, but that was actually all incorporated into the neighborhood development itself. And today it's we'll start in Bayless Park. Bayless Park has changed significantly over the last 10 years. We're going to be starting in an area that used to be a part of a roadway, which is now part of the extension of the park itself. So not only has it been a really distinct Mediterranean type neighborhood, it's also really adapted to the time. To be kind of a more walkable, dense neighborhood, and we'll kind of explore, how that happened and where it's going as well.
Let's take a minute, Mike, to also talk about the Jackson, our partners that you and the other guys over at the Jackson Mag, where you really do such an amazing job educating people about these neighborhoods. That's the work of the Jackson. And so this is just an extension of that, right?
Well, I mean, I love living here, and I've lived here all my life, and but I still learn things that kind of blow my mind. And we do research, digging our heads in the library on a Saturday morning, and you discover things that you never knew existed in our city, and it's really fascinating. That's really what kind of drives our love for not only our community but also telling the stories of how of the what and where and why of Jacksonville. And these neighborhood tours are kind of an extension of this. We did one earlier in the year in the Durkeeville neighborhood, which was kind of Jacksonville's first kind of quote unquote middle class Black neighborhood. And at the end of the tour, a couple of old timers came up to me and said, we've lived here for 70 plus years, and this is the first time we've visited this neighborhood and understood how this neighborhood came to be and the challenges that it faces, and we're doing so in a way that wasn't threatening to us. Because a lot of times, just like in your previous segment about the activists versus police, sometimes those conversations get heated, And what we really try to do is just let's just strip away the the kind of rhetoric and just talk about really how we got to where we were. And I feel that people really kind of can are more open to listening to those things when they actually can see it and feel it and experience it. And so that's what we do on an online presence. But we also try to do these tours as well to kind of really get the boots in the ground, because it's one thing to look at an aerial photo online, but when you see it, smell it, hear it, feel it, it's totally different.
And of course, San Marco is one of the few truly walkable neighborhoods in town, so you need to get out and walk it at least once, right?
Exactly. I mean, my wife and I walk it every day, and we get kind of spoiled by that. But it's certainly a neighborhood that lends itself to walking. There's beautiful shade trees everywhere. The weather should be great, and there's interesting things to see. And there are a lot of hidden kind of spots that people don't really realize. I have a cousin that lives in St. Nicholas, and had no idea there was a lake behind the square.
Yeah,
until
right,
a couple
and a beautiful
of months ago
one.
when I showed her. And so those are the kind of things that we'll discover, and I think it's eye-opening for people to see.
Okay, folks, this is coming up Saturday, Walking Tours of San Marco, courtesy of the guys at the Jackson Mag. They begin tours at 9:30, 10:30, and 11:30 a.m. in Bayless Park. Tickets are $25, and you can get them through Eventbrite. Get your tickets now. Get out and enjoy, as Mike said, some Chamber of Commerce weather Saturday and walk beautiful San Marco. Learn about the history of the neighborhood from the Jacksons editors who do such a great job involving us in this community's history via its neighborhoods. Have fun, Mike.
Thanks, Melissa. Appreciate the work you do. Thank you very much.
You as well. A quick break. And in a moment, did you know that today is Get Smart About Credit Day? Do you know your credit score? Could it be better? We'll have some tips and strategies on how you can improve your credit profile right after this. Don't go away.
Cindy Tomasetti of Engel & Volkers is committed to her customers. Whether it's buying or selling, Cindy uses decades of experience in real estate and marketing to deliver 5-star service. Information at northeastfloridarealtor.com. Mayo Clinic. If you're looking for answers no one else has been able to find, and it's time to get some certainty once and for all, you know where to go. Mayo Clinic. More at mayoclinic.org/Florida.
The Jacksonville Symphony's spectacular fall season continues with performances of Bach's lively Brandenburg Concerto No. 1, performed for you in Jacoby Symphony Hall, October 22nd and 23rd. Treat yourself to a sensational evening of live classical music, a night out to be shared with family and friends. Tickets and information at jacksymphony.org.
WJCT Public Media is bringing you a new healthcare show, What's Health Got to Do with It? Our goal is to help you navigate all things health and healthcare and get you the answers you deserve. Join me, Dr. Joe Servin, Saturdays at 4 p.m. and Sundays at 9 p.m. on WJCT News 89.9. Sponsored in part by American Brain Foundation, Epilepsy Foundation, and Norellis.
California is making it harder for companies to cover up harassment and abuse.
The state has just passed the Silenced No More Act. It gives more protection to workers who speak out, even if they've signed a non-disclosure agreement. And it was co-sponsored by Ifoma Ozoma, a whistleblower who used to work in Silicon Valley. She joins us next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, today is Get Smart About Credit Day. It's a time to know your credit score and better manage your credit profile. This will help you in so many ways, folks. Joy Bing is VP of Consumer Lending at Jax Federal Credit Union. Hey, Joy, good morning. Oh, let me put you on there. Press the wrong button. Hi, Joy. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us. Okay, an important step in financial health is knowing your credit score. That's step one on Get Smart About Credit Day, right? People need to know what their credit score is.
That's right. Most credit unions, including Jax Federal, can regularly update consumers on their credit score. But like you said, knowing your score is what you need to focus on, to improve it.
Yeah, I mean, generally a score of above 700 is the range you want to be in. Of course, many people are below that, and they can get one free credit report each year from one of the 3 credit bureaus too, right? Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion?
That's right. We're all entitled to a free credit report every year. So all they have to do is go online to annualcreditreport.com and order each of the credit bureaus. They can order them all at one time, or, I always suggest that maybe you stagger them out throughout the year and order one per quarter or something like that. That way, if there's any issues going on, you'd be able to catch it.
Now, once you have your credit report, you should really look at it, because isn't it true that mistakes in people's credit history are pretty common and you need to fix them?
That's right. Mistakes are actually more common than you may think. According to a Consumer Reports investigation from earlier this year, more than 1/3 of Americans have found mistakes on their credit report that have negatively impacted their credit score. So once they, get it and they review it, you want to make sure everything is correct. But if it's not, then they want to make sure that they're disputing it, directly with the credit agencies. And they can do that through Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion.
Yeah. What about credit fraud? Let's talk about that. Setting up fraud alerts, making sure no one's robbing you or stealing your identity. It's gotten banks and credit unions have gotten more proactive about that too in recent years. Tell us about that.
That's right. So setting up fraud alerts is always the best way to monitor your overall credit profile, and just make sure that you don't have anyone using your information to get credit. It's a free service. It does have to be renewed annually, but it is free for you to set up any sort of fraud alert. So another good thing is if you're not planning on opening any accounts, or buying a car, or credit card, or anything like that, you could consider putting a freeze on your account. And that basically puts a hold on your credit file, and no one would be able to access it without you unfreezing the account.
Now, Joy, what about those who are really drowning in credit card debt? And certainly in this pandemic that we've all lived through, there are plenty of people out there who've had to turn to credit cards just to get by. Paying down credit card debt is so important, but it's easier said than done. It will help your credit score. It will help you do other things, like, say, if you want to buy a home, a mortgage company will be more likely to lend to you if you're not over-leveraged with credit debt. What's your advice for people to start on that path? Because it can seem so overwhelming.
It sure can. So the first thing I think they would want to do is to set and try to keep a budget that works, for them or their family, just to make sure that they're not overspending. Another big thing that you want to do is to have an emergency fund. Those unplanned expenses all come up. We, blow a tire on the way to work, or, we have to make a purchase for our air conditioner or something that goes out. So you don't want to always have to put those unexpected bills on a credit card. And then I would say think before you spend. Small expenses, even a daily coffee, can add up to large sums. So if they're not necessary, use that money and put it towards paying down your credit card debt. So even the slightest little changes can help in the long term.
Something I've done in the past, too, when I had to tackle this problem is something called the debt snowball, where small victories tend to keep your momentum going. You pay off one small loan, throw everything you have at that first. You feel the sense of accomplishment of getting that one off your plate, and then you move to the next one. Do you feel that's an effective strategy?
I do. I think that works because, we all want to celebrate small successes. So it works exactly like you said. So you take your credit cards and you make your minimum payments on all of them except for maybe the lowest balance. And then you take anything extra that you have and you throw it towards that one. Once that, card is paid off, then you take the money that you would have spent towards that and you move on to the next. So especially if you're a checklist person or you're somebody, that just likes to kind of see your progress as you go along, that's absolutely a good method to use.
Right. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. It gives you that momentum. It gets bigger and bigger. Okay, today is International Credit Union Day. How are you celebrating that?
It sure is. So Jax Federal is actually waiving its membership fee for all new members today through the end of the month. So if there's anybody out there that doesn't have a credit union home, I would suggest that, you come see us at one of our branches, and we'd love to take you in.
Thanks, Joy. She's Joy Bing, VP of Consumer Lending at Jax Federal Credit Union. There was a typo. I thought for a minute your name was Joy Bling, which I thought was super appropriate.
I get that from time to time. I get the whole bling.
Well, you bling it up, and thank you, Joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. And thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Melissa Ross, and we'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great day. Be safe.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida Tea